It's our spring training injury update show. For the next 50 minutes, Ruvain has you covered with all of the key injured players and our fantasy take on how to handle them. Beat the Shift is next. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always, Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Spring training in the thick of things. We've got some 22 pitch at bats. Did you see that with Rhys Hoskins?
Yeah, that was just amazing, and it was amazing how he just kept fouling off pitches and how the bench was reacting. It was just amazing to watch. If you haven't seen it, it's on MLB on Twitter. It's all over the place. It's really great.
Yeah. Well, today is our injury update episode. No guest today. We're just going to have Ruvain go through a bunch of updates to some hitters, pitchers, and everything in between. And we'll give a little bit of fantasy spin, of course, as we go. So let's just shoot it right here. Starting with some hitters, Alex Bregman. We know he was injured. Question for you is, how much did injuries affect Bregman in 2020?
I don't think it affected him that much. I think, if anything, he may be affected the first couple months of the season now because he's still dealing with a sore hamstring, and he's first expected to make his spring debut sometime this week. Now, that only gives him about 2 weeks to get into game shape. I don't know if he can do that or not, but, we'll just have to see.
Okay, so, in terms of expectation, ATC is projecting 538 at-bats. Is that going to be too high, too low, just right? What's your sense?
No, I think that's going to be just right because they can hypothetically use him as a DH. I know they have Yordan Alvarez, who also just started hitting this week as well. So, it's kind of hard. They really don't have a place to play him besides third. So he has only been DH. He's scheduled to only the DH. He hasn't really played the field yet also, so that's also a little bit of a concern. So the at-bats, I think he'll get close to that, but it's going to be limited early on in the season.
Okay. I mean, ATC is low on Alex Bregman, predicting him for a bust, not a bargain. So with the injury concern as well, I'm pretty much staying off of Bregman. I have no shares of him. How about you?
Same with me. I don't have any shares of him. I'm nervous also about that lineup because there are a lot of either aging or possibly coming off of injured players, so it's a little bit questionable. And with George Springer gone, George Springer was the leadoff guy, and he actually stirred the drink a lot. So I'm a little bit nervous about that lineup. I'm not saying that at the right bargain I wouldn't get him, but it has to be at the right bargain.
Okay, next player, Xander Bogert. I know he has that shoulder issue, which you'll tell us about in a second, but I mean, ATC has found him undervalued. He has 5 categories with above a 0.5 Z-score. 3 of those categories above a 125 Z-score. We're talking about a 5-category contributor here who's found in the third rounds, who really, to me, is a great base of stats, and I'm finding myself buying him quite a bit. Low chance of a bust, low chance of much of a gain, but at a value and a low risk. To me, that's a great spot for him. What is his injury status?
Well, he has been dealing with a shoulder injury for most of spring training. He has a sore right shoulder. His MRI was negative. He just recently began serving as Boston's DH over the past few games without any issue. The question is when he'll be able to get back to shortstop. The Boston Red Sox don't have a true designated hitter besides J.D. Martinez, if he can play the outfield a little bit. So Xander Bogaerts may not lose that many at-bats if they put him at DH to start the season for the first week or two.
Yeah, if the reason that I've been buying him is because people are scared of his injury, sounds to me that you think that we're just getting a nice little discount and might make him even more worth it, right?
Yes, 100%. His MRI was negative. There's really nothing going on there, according to the MRI. So I'm not overly concerned with his injury in spring training.
Okay, let's talk about JT Realmuto, top catcher. Of course, in a 30-catcher league, Realmuto is a little bit of a profile risk because if he gets injured for a duration of time and you have him, I mean you're talking going from the top catcher to scrub on the waiver wire. That's a huge value loss. But of course, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a lot better than that 30th catcher. I don't think I've seen on the draft in drafts right now, I don't really see him getting much of a discount for the injury. Have you seen any discount? I mean, he's still going fourth round pretty much.
Yeah, he's still going pretty early, and that's 100% normal because Phillies manager Joe Girardi actually said last week that he's been cleared to resume all baseball activities, and he was able to. And Girardi noted actually this week that he was able to have 40 throws during a workout without any injury or any incident or anything like that. So he should be good to go for opening day, and he's going to get his normal days off, which will only help him in the long run.
And no lingering effects like the first month he'll be a little bit down. None of that, you think?
I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of him getting his timing set because, again, he hasn't really faced any live pitching yet, and we're only 2.5 weeks until the season starts.
Okay. Talk about Trent Grisham. Usually I find, and I'm sure you do too, that usually have to reach a little bit to pay for steals somewhere high up in a draft. Trent Grisham is going 5th, 6th round, and according to my prices, he's actually undervalued. And for steals, to me, that's a huge spot to get a stolen base guy. And we have him projected for almost 20 stolen bases without reaching for him all that much. What is his injury, and is this going to hamper his value for this year?
Well, he was diagnosed with a grade 1 hamstring strain. He suffered it while running out a ground ball. The Padres are hopeful that he'll only miss a week, but these hamstring issues, they can linger and they can reoccur during the course of the season. So that's something to watch for, especially if you're getting him for those stolen bases. You may be a little weary about it at this point. You may not get the full, again, if they let him rest, it shouldn't be that much of an issue, but they may try to push him, and if they try to push him before he's ready, or he says he's ready, he's not really ready, then he may be out for an extended period of time later in the season.
All right, so the 19 stolen bases that ATC is projecting, is this something that we really shouldn't buy to? Should we project more like 15? Is that should we buy to more than 15?
Yes, I was going to say 15. Don't guarantee that 19, 20 range at this point. Listen, if they give him the proper rest and he's able to go in a couple of weeks, then he should get there because the Padres have plenty of options out there in the outfield. So, they can just stick Jerks and Profar out there and he can get you some stolen bases. So if you're looking for a guy later in the draft, he's a guy to target if you have Trent Grisham. That way you're sort of getting like the handcuff on it.
Right. Okay. Rhys Hoskins. I know we had Stephania Bell saying that his Tommy John surgery, and you'll have to help me here, was with an arm sling. Can you talk about that?
Internal brace repair, which is a modified Tommy. Yes, it's a modified Tommy John procedure. It was done back in October, and at first I was a little bit nervous that he wasn't going to be ready for spring training, and it seems like he's playing, and it seems like he has no problems. He does have the option of playing first base because that's where he plays, and that can also give him a lot of extra at bats and rest that elbow at the same time. And the swing does not seem to be affecting his arm. We saw that in the past when Shohei Ohtani had the elbow issue. He was able to play before he had Tommy John surgery. He DH'd and he had no problem. So at this point, I think Rhys Hoskins is good to go. And if you can get him in a bargain, now's the time to get him in a bargain.
And he is going for a bargain. He's going. There's a nice hot spot with Hoskins, close to like Eric Hosmer, Josh Bell, Max Muncy, Miguel Sano. Some good first basemen with power. Maybe not Hosmer in that category, but they're all roughly the same value. They're all at a slight discount, and they're all first basemen. And I think Hoskins fits right in there. Right? You wouldn't be afraid to take him at just the same price as everyone else?
No, I think this is a perfect buy here. I'm really high on Hoskins. I think he's going to do well. I think the elbow issue may have been bothering him last year a bit as well, even before they actually announced it. So that may have affected his stats a little bit last year. But this is a guy I'm 100% buying, and I probably want to get because some of the top first basemen are going too expensive. You can get a cheaper first baseman later on.
Yeah, he only had 150 at-bats last year, which was a pace of just about 400. And in that 400 pace, he had 27 homers. We're projecting him for 30 homers this year. I'm with you. I think that this is interesting here, and I can see over 30. I think 30 is a good expectation, and if you're buying to 30, then you're buying him at a bargain. So I like it. Nick Madrigal, here's somebody that I somehow have no interest in getting. He's a guy who has, he's a batting average king. His contact rate is unbelievable. He's going to get on any way he can, and he will steal some. Maybe he'll steal 15 bases. To me, if you happen to need that stat and he's around, he's a stopgap, he's late, I think people are reaching a little bit for him, and you get pretty much no power, no RBIs out of him. They're paying a little bit too much. What is his injury status, and are you interested at all in Madrigal this year?
Well, Madrigal had left shoulder surgery in October of last year, and he continues to feel residual soreness and hasn't played in the game since last week when he made his spring debut. I'm a little bit nervous about him. He's not known for his power, like you said. He's known for his batting average, which, that's not the worst thing in the world for a shoulder injury. But I think I compare him a little bit to Gregory Polanco a couple of years ago when he had shoulder surgery, and then he had residual soreness for an extended period of time as well. Granted, it wasn't the exact same procedure, but shoulder soreness, if you push it too soon, too quickly, it's not a good thing, and you're going to have major issues in the long run. So I think he may, there's another case where there's a lot of people who are ahead of him, and he may not be pushed ahead so quickly just because of that injury.
All right, so I think you're generally staying away from him, if I read you correctly.
Yes, I'm not buying him. Even at his price now, I'm not buying him. No.
What was the injury last year to him?
He ended up needing shoulder surgery. He had I believe he had a tear in his shoulder, so I believe he needed shoulder surgery for that reason.
Oh, okay. All right, so this is just the continuation of that.
This is a continuation. He had surgery October of last year, so it's about 5 months since the surgery. So. Okay.
Brandon Belt, he typically can't stay healthy. He had 526 at-bats in 2019, but other than that, really had trouble just staying healthy. He's had some really good 2-month stretches, Brandon Belt, and every time you think he gets going, he gets injured. This year, I can see him losing some playing time to Buster Posey. What are the Giants doing with Brandon Belt this year, and what's his status?
Well, Brandon Belt is a little bit behind everyone else in preparing for this year already. He had bone spurs removed from his right heel mid-October. He had COVID-19 in January, and he had mononucleosis in February. So he is still behind everybody in preparing. He has been noted and seen on the field already doing doing typical baseball activities, quote unquote. But there's a very good chance that he may not be 100% ready for opening day. And the Giants actually have a bunch of options they can put there. They have Wilmer Flores, who, if you want someone really cheap, you can get him cheap. Darren Ruff, who's not even being drafted, you can get him also really cheap. And another guy who was actually pretty decent last year, and that's Austin Slater, who can actually see some at-bats there as well.
Even when he comes back, is this a platoon situation for Belt, do you think?
I think, yes. It's going to be a platoon situation, and I think Brandon Belt and Wilmer Flores complement each other very well in that sense.
Yeah, Flores very good against lefties. I guess we can see this happen. Strong side platoon for Belt, but nevertheless, he probably won't get, would you say he would get more than 400 at-bats at this pace?
It's possible, but if I was a betting man, I would say no, just because of his injury history.
All right, and ATC has him projected for 460 at the moment, so I guess you're taking the under on that one.
I'll take the under.
Okay. Gmon Choi, what do you have for him?
Well, Rays manager Kevin Cash said that Choi will be shut down for 7 to 10 days. This happened about a couple days ago, and this is being taped on March 15th, for right knee soreness. Cash reiterated that he's not overly concerned about the injury. There's no word or whether an MRI was done yet, but this is a little bit concerning to being shut down for 10 days when the season starts in about 25 days. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking for this to happen, so I'm not really buying him this year.
Okay, but I mean, the Rays, they do crazy things here, and Gmon Choi was going to be a classic Rays platoon player. They have a lot of guys to put in. I don't think they need him, so maybe they are just being extra precautious and having him available 100% when he comes back. I'm just asking you whether you think that the Rays are being extra cautious here, and he's probably going to be fine sooner than later.
Well, they can because they have so many other options. They have options like Yandy Diaz and other players who tend to get injured as well. So, they can really err on the side of caution here. If his knee continues to act up, they'll probably get an MRI. And if something shows there, if surgery is required, they'll do whatever they have to. But I think they are being very cautious with him. And they also told him, by the way, no switch hitting this year. He actually tried to bat the others from the opposite side, and that didn't really work out.
I love that. With Gmon Choi, though, his per at bat statistics are fantastic. I'm projecting him for 367 at bats, 15 homers. So that's a nice player for when he plays. Yeah, he's not somebody that you're going to pick up, but he's somebody to really be aware of on the waiver wire a little bit later. I think I wouldn't sleep on him, especially if you can see, if you're in a league, then you're churning some of the offensive roster, and they're going to come in and face a bunch of right